there is this sort of hysterical refrain every other day. Oh, there's going to be a vaccine tomorrow. It's a long process to get a proper vaccine ready, isn't it?
Yeah, there are. It's Pravda-like the way the media in this country is trying to push a vaccine. I want to state from the outset that I desperately hope one comes along as soon as
Oh,
possible.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Tomorrow isn't soon enough, but it isn't too soon. Sorry, but it really it's highly unlikely. That piece you talked about earlier, I thought it was dreadful. It showed nothing of the sort that the journalists were claiming. There is one test for whether the vaccine works, and that's to what degree it stops people picking up the virus and getting sick.
Yeah.
That's it. Any other stuff is baloney and just ignore it. And similarly, when you see politicians and TV doctors going on air telling people the vaccine trials are going well, they don't know that. All they can know is that the vaccine trials are recruiting the right number of volunteers.
Yeah.
That's all. Those trials are blind. Nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah, further down that story with that blaring headline, the vaccine works perfectly. I'll read you out a paragraph. While the world waits for the results of trials on whether the Oxford vaccine actually works, the new findings are the next step forward. So the story doesn't remotely back up the headline, and I think gives a far more accurate position that we are only at best at the beginning of the trials for any kind of a vaccine. What would be your estimate, Simon, realistically, of when one, if they can ever find one at all, when one might be ready?
Ready to actually go into people at the very earliest, the second half of next year, 12 months' time from now, but it could be years away. And even if they do get a vaccine, it might not be suitable for everybody. For instance, it might not be suitable in elderly people who are the ones who need it. It might not be suitable in people who have diabetes who would also need it because they're at high risk as well. It's just two examples. So there are all these other things to find out. We don't know how long it would give you immunity for. They'd have to measure that, and whether there are any long-term side effects, although that's probably easier to get an earlier handle on. So the idea that we're all going to get a vaccine, we're all going to get it in our arms next year, and everything will go back to normal like that is for the birds, I'm afraid.
It's what makes Matt Hancock's certitude so disconcerting. This is a man who says we're going to have to keep taking these measures. We're going to have to keep this tier system going, circuit breaker lockdowns. We're going to have to keep doing it until we get the vaccine. Then the next breath, the Prime Minister stands up and citing the fact that after 17 years, we still haven't found a vaccine for SARS, says we may never find a vaccine for COVID-19. So you have the health minister saying we've got to wait for the vaccine. We have a prime minister realistically saying we might never get one. That's worrying, isn't it?
It is worrying, yes. In fact, when we first, when we get the first trials through, we'll get an indication of whether it's ultimately going to be possible. Even if we don't get a vaccine, we might get a hint that it requires just some more work. I mean, so you can take it that far, I guess. But yeah, we don't know what we're going to be doing in 2, 3, 4 years' time. Hopefully, we will be back to normal, but we can't know that.
And the other question, which is a very grey area, the thing is, it doesn't take a genius to realize that the people working on vaccines now are working under some pressure. They're trying to create a vaccine as quickly as possible. They've already said if we can get one ready, we can give you some guarantees about the short-term side effects, but the long-term side effects we won't have had the chance to test, so we don't know what will happen in the long term. In other words, lots and lots of people are going to be very, very reticent about taking this vaccine. I had a professor on a couple of weeks ago and he said, well, I'd take it. I said, well, would you let your kids take it? He said, oh, that's a different question.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a problem here, isn't there?
There is a problem here. And that's why I'm concerned about at-risk groups, because in these trials, you have to be healthy. You have to not have any of the sort of conditions that might cause a problem down the line. So we don't know how effective it will be in them. All these things, they're worth finding out, but they take time. It's
Yeah,
just a fact.
yeah, and I don't think that the people who are expressing doubts about taking the vaccine, because on this show, I sort of put this point quite often to the listeners: would you take the vaccine? And they all come back, no, 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 no. These people are not manic anti-vaxxers. They're people with, I think, justifiable concerns about this vaccine. It's been produced in haste. What will the efficacy be of it? That is a problem, I think, for the government, because I think millions of people will not rush forward to take this vaccine.
Yeah, and I think quite possibly it's a side effect, and an understandable side effect, of this rush to create an impression of undue urgency. I mean, it is an urgent thing to get, but care must be taken with it. And perhaps it looks to people at times, I think so at times, that it looks like it's all being rushed along without the proper questions and the proper care being taken.